Hey guys, this is Eric from the Reptile Room. Today we're just going to take a really quick look at some differences between a bioactive setup and a much more simplistic setup. So this here would be an example of a very simplistic setup. This is how we actually set our bearded dragons up for sale in a retail environment because it's very easy to sterilize in between animals when they come and they go. So this meets all of the needs of the animal. It's not the most stimulating, but here we have a good place for this little Mr. Captain Hook here to hide. You might notice he's actually got a little bit of a nubble thing going on here. He's a rescue who was dropped off. Where are you going, buddy? He's on the run. So he's a rescue that was dropped off as such, and he actually came back really well from that. He's doing quite well, and he's got his mobility figured out. But that's all part of the rescue biz. Anyways, this meets all of his basic needs. We have a hide here that he can fit inside. We have an angry mouth that's ready to go from my fingy. We have lighting up above. I have UV lighting in a T5 linear unit to get his UVB light, and then we have a ceramic heat emitter or a deep heat projector to provide the heat there, and then at nighttime when his lights go off, that ceramic heat emitter still keeps his basking spot in an appropriate temperature. And then I've got a little ball in here for him, just to see if he would play with it, and so far he's not so interested, but since it's a more simplistic setup, it gives him something to do. Anyways, this is a good example of your bare minimum, honestly. And of course a bearded dragon will outgrow an enclosure this size, but it's good for the time being for him. Anyways, moving from the simplistic style of enclosure to my personal preference, we'll pop on up and we'll pop on over into our classroom here. So this right here is a great example of what we call a bioactive enclosure. Obviously there's a lot more going on in here. For starters, I mean, it just kind of looks better. But it also serves a lot of functions for this little blue tongue skink that we have hanging out in here. So let's get this opened up. So what we have in here is basically a little ecosystem that the animal just so happens to live in. And this comprises of these live plants, UV lighting to keep the plants going and also to the benefit of the lizard itself. And if I look around, there we go, a cleanup crew. In this case we're using little beetles because it's a bit of a drier enclosure, but we often use isopods and springtails and all sorts of little buggies. So what's going to happen in here is a little blue tongue skink here is going to make a little poopies, and I'm going to clean them out, obviously, but a little remnants of that are going to soak into this dirt, which we call substrate when it's in an enclosure like such. And these bugs are actually going to eat that fecal matter along with any shedding that this guy lets off that I miss, or any food that he spills. And those bugs are going to eat it, and they're going to break it down into plant fertilizer, essentially. Now, if there's no plants in here, the substrate's going to get super nasty as well, just because isopod poop will basically build up. But what these plants are going to do is they're going to root in, and they're going to pull that icky out of the substrate and use it for growth. And then if the plants have some die-off, the isopods will eat that as well, and it comes full cycle, essentially keeping the dirt sterile and balanced and safe for the animal. So it's a lot more expensive to set up initially, of course, because a lot more goes into something like this. But in the long run, it's a lot more stimulating for the animal, and it's also going to save you money in the long run because you don't have to change your substrate out every 30 days. In fact, it would be counterintuitive to do so. If properly cycled and maintained, this substrate will potentially last for years before I have to really make any major adjustments. Anyways, that's it for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.